I joined DCD approximately 4 years ago full-time. The opportunity came when the company was expanding overseas. My work that I had done in Asia and in Latin America and in the Middle East allowed for a good transition for me also, plus for the company. And it was nice to kind of move over to more of the cutting edge of what's happening next, as opposed to being the man in the engine room. Down in the dirt and getting your hands really into it, which I enjoyed. It was an opportunity for me to see where things were going next in the industry. Implementation, migration, adoption is different around the world. And it can be seen in, especially with emerging economies, that have been able to look back at where Europe and North America has been and not make those mistakes. We've already seen that happen in the mobile sector, where Europe and North America were one of the first regions to deploy mobile networks and mobile systems. And then we saw other countries like Latin America learn from the mistakes that were made. We saw them leapfrog, and they utilized the technology and the experience where they reached out to companies and operators in North America and Europe and said, what lessons have you learned and what can we do? We're seeing the same thing in technology, where Latin America has been very, very smart in already launching a lot of co-location and cloud providers because of the lack of infrastructure, where they've had to have a sharing economy already. A lot of regions are really adopting quickly. We've seen the same thing in China. We've already seen a tremendous amount of open source, as an example, being used in China. We've already seen a tremendous amount of the co-location market occur in China, where companies typically didn't have the 10-year legacy run. This is a big issue for us at the BPI network, is that issue of legacy, where we've seen countries that didn't have legacy problems were able to push that aside and just move into the forefront. Move into the front of technology and innovation and implementation and learn from everybody else. They didn't have 10, 15 years of legacy applications. Don't touch that server, it could shut down the entire bank. They got smart. Companies are having problems right now. These greenfield facilities, these new operators, these new players that are utilizing the outsourced model are having new challenges that other companies don't have. You know what happens when you actually decide to outsource to somebody else and you say, you take care of my mission critical infrastructure? Yeah. You no longer have the core capability to manage it when something finally does happen. There's the problem of the data itself and the volume that you're dealing with and the ability to analyze it and utilize it properly. Look, it's useless. You know, we always say in data centers that, you know, you can't manage something if you're not monitoring it. Well, you can't utilize the data unless you're analyzing it. So that's part one, is, as you mentioned, that data analytics. It's not there yet. We have all this data, but we're not using it. Right? Then you've got part two. Even inside the data center and the network, we've got millions of nodes of points of presence of information coming into our data center or into our network operation centers, and guess what? We can't utilize all the information properly because of information overload. At a certain point in time, you actually get what's known as analysis paralysis. There's far too much. This is a new area of business for companies. This is a new area of mining data. You know, it's a new area of actually analytics, being able to utilize them inside your systems, but do you have the right people in place? Both the technology people, the operations people, the analytical people, and then once you've done that, the delivery people. So can you take the information that you have and deliver it? And look, companies around the world are having major problems with where can they keep their data, where can they store their data, because rules and regulations are getting more and more difficult to deal with. And quite frankly, we've seen this with the safe harbor regulations that have now happened between Europe and North America. The entire world thought that North America and Europe had settled this. Here we are again, 10 years later, after we had taken care of this, we thought, they're back discussing it. Well, guess what? Keep on discussing it, because then we can have the cloud really reach into new markets.